It's kind of wild to think that a promise made to one man, something like 4,000 years ago, has become a major flashpoint in modern global politics. So let's dive into this and really unpack one of the most influential and, most contested promises in all of human history.
See, it all comes down to this one fundamental question. Who are the rightful heirs to this ancient promise? And the answer you land on, well, it has huge implications, not just for theology, but for geopolitics today.
And here it is, the text that started it all, right from the book of Genesis. God calls a man named Abram and gives him this sweeping three-part promise. He's going to be a great nation, he'll have a great name, and through him the entire world, every family on earth will be blessed. This is the seed for everything that comes next.
Now, here's the thing. This huge promise wasn't seen as a one-and-done kind of deal. Nope. It was understood to unfold across history in three really distinct stages, or covenants.
So you can really see the progression here. That promise of a great nation, that was fulfilled through Moses when he led Israel out of Egypt. Then the promise of a great name, which was understood to mean a great kingdom, found its fulfillment in King David and his whole royal dynasty. And finally, that third piece, the universal blessing for all the families of the earth, well, that was understood to be fulfilled in Jesus Christ and the founding of a universal church.
And that brings us right back to today, because believe it or not, how you interpret the fulfillment of that promise has a direct line to one of the most heated debates of our time, the theological and political meaning of the modern state of Israel.
This whole debate really boils down to two majorly different ways of looking at it, two competing theological frameworks. So let's just lay them out side by side.
Okay, so on one side, you've got what's called the dispensationalist view. You hear this a lot in evangelical circles. It basically holds that God's promise applies literally and forever to Abraham's physical, genetic descendants, and by extension, to the modern state of Israel. And this belief often translates into some really strong political support. But then on the other side, you have the argument that's rooted right in the New Testament, which flat out rejects the idea that these promises are just inherited by bloodline. It argues that actually it's your spiritual lineage that truly matters.
So let's dig into that second view a little deeper, because it's pretty fascinating. The writers of the New Testament, especially St. Paul, really take apart this whole idea that the promise is all about ethnic inheritance.
I mean, this line right here from Paul's letter to the Romans, it's absolutely explosive. He's driving a huge wedge between just being physically descended from someone and truly belonging to the spiritual community. He's basically saying, hey, just because you can trace your family tree back to Abraham or Jacob, that's not enough. That doesn't automatically make you part of the true Israel.
And John the Baptist makes a similar point, but even more dramatically. When people were bragging about their ancestry, he basically told them their family tree was worthless. He declared that God is not bound by bloodlines at all. He could make children for Abraham out of rocks if he wanted to. The takeaway is crystal clear. God is not limited by our human definitions of family.
And this is where Paul just delivers the knockout punch. It's the ultimate answer to the question, so who are the real children of Abraham? And Paul's answer couldn't be clearer. It's the people who share his faith. Suddenly, faith becomes the new requirement, the new criterion for inheriting the promise. And that throws the doors wide open to anyone, from any ethnic background.
But Paul takes it even one step further. It's kind of a nerdy grammar point, but it's huge. He points out that the original promise in Genesis actually talks about Abraham's offspring in the singular, one descendant, not many. And he identifies that one singular heir as Christ himself. So, the only way for any of us to become an heir to that promise is to be united with Christ.
So, where is all this heading? Well, it builds to this really powerful concept, the idea of the church as the fulfillment of all the promises God made to Israel. And it's super important to get this right. The idea isn't about replacement, it's about fulfillment.
Paul calls this new community the Israel of God. And it's a pretty radical redefinition. It's made up of the Jewish people who recognize Jesus as the Messiah, and they're joined together with all the non-Jewish people, the Gentiles, who are described as being grafted in. It's like taking a branch from a wild tree and grafting it onto the main family tree of Israel so that together they form one new, unified people. So why is the church seen this way? Well, think back to the prophet Jeremiah. He predicted that God would make a new covenant with the house of Israel. Fast forward to the Last Supper, and what does Jesus do? He institutes that exact covenant. So the church, which celebrates this new covenant through the Eucharist, is therefore seen as that very house of Israel, a beautiful blended family of both Jewish and Gentile believers.
Okay, this is all really fascinating theology, right? But what does it actually mean for you or for me? How does a regular person actually inherit this incredible, universal blessing that was promised to Abraham thousands of years ago?
Well, according to the New Testament, it's kind of like a three-step path. It all starts with grace through faith, just recognizing that salvation is a totally free gift, not something you can earn. Then, that faith is expressed and sealed through baptism, which is the act that officially brings a person into union with Christ. And finally, and this is key, this has to be a living, breathing, active faith, one that naturally works through love and results in good works.
And this is a really crucial distinction to make. See, saving faith isn't just about agreeing that some facts are true. You know, the book of James puts it so bluntly. It says even the demons believe and shudder. So just nodding your head in agreement, that's not it. True faith is this dynamic force that includes trust and hope and love, and it can't help but change your life from the inside out.
So we end up right back where we started, but maybe with a totally new perspective. If the ultimate inheritance, the greatest promises, aren't about blood or land or politics, but about a shared faith that goes beyond all ethnicity and nationality, what does that mean for how we define our communities, our tribes, our us versus them today? It's a question that really challenges us to rethink who belongs, who we call family, and what it is that truly binds us all together.